Good evening and welcome to Off the Cuff with Visvin Reddy. It's Monday, the 6th of July. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, right here from Durban, South Africa. And let's invite all our friends by clicking the share button. Today, I have a lot to discuss, and I want to have the opportunity for you to be able to give us your views, your comments. They're more than welcome. I will share them on the program tonight. We're going through some challenging times, and this is the program where we all get a chance to share our thoughts, to know what's going on around us, and to make some informed decisions. I want to thank all of you for joining in. It's Monday, as I said, and I want to apologize for not coming on live last night. I had lots of messages from all our regulars asking me what happened, and to those of you who sent me good wishes and get well wishes, thank you very much for those messages, your messages of support and your prayers and all of that. But I'm perfectly fine today, and we are ready to kick off the program. On the last show, I missed a song item, which I'm going to play again today. And this one, it's a dance item done by the Leona Dean Dance Academy, based in Chatsworth. Leona Dean has had many years in the cultural scene. From a young girl, she's spent a lot of time imparting knowledge and the Indian culture to many hundreds of pupils who today are adults, and they're located all around the world. So Leona Dean, we remember her, and this one is a dance item performed to the popular song Ye Ye Macha, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I do.
Hey macha inda machini chiki poo mala katti poda varuvana kai vechu rendu kannukulla ramai vechu konjam poosi viduvana
Macha, performed by the Leona Dean Dance Academy. I want to take this opportunity of welcoming our listeners tonight. They are none other than Dr. Dina Padiachi. Thank you for joining in. Kamala Rambaran, Charmaine Naidu, my wife Reddy, Bishop Jairus Pillay. Thank you for the warm messages and your prayers, Bishop. Justin Govinda. Good to have you, Justin, on the show tonight. I missed you for a while. Bitesh Harinathan. Justin is a young man, and yesterday he was out in Chatsworth. He did an open air service, and I had some people from the area who called me, and they said to me they wish that more Christians preached and spread messages like the way Justin did. He was not condescending. He did not attack any other religion, and well done, Justin. You did a great piece of work during these difficult times to be able to go out there and bring a message of hope without making people feel bad about it. So today, it's the 6th of July. It's Monday. We're here in Durban in the middle of winter, and we are 102 days into the lockdown here in South Africa. And there's been so much going on, so much of court cases, so much of toing and froing. Really, we hope that those that are in charge know what they're doing. And when I go back, I had a clip prepared for you. The World Health Organization, one of the doctors there now says that people who show no symptoms of coronavirus, that they are asymptomatic, they will not be spreading the virus. So it is safe for them to be walking and continuing with lives as normal. And this obviously contradicts what they've said to us earlier on, that if you have this virus, in fact, it's a major breakthrough, major news, and it now gives us a whole new look at this coronavirus, because now with the World Health Organization making such pronouncements, it then means that people who are positive with the COVID-19, that they may well be able to continue with their lives as normal, because they will not be spreading the virus to others. We wait for further developments on that, and I will keep you updated as we go along. We are joined tonight by Famida Abdullah. Welcome, Famida. Thanks for joining the show, and I have a lot to talk about. So stay tuned. You are in the right place. If you want to be informed, remember, Off the Cuff, it's the show where grey matter matters. This is not one of those floozy types of shows where people just talk and say anything they want to say. You're welcome to contribute and make your comments on the show tonight. I will read them out, no matter what they may be, and you are welcome to join in the program. So I want to share with you the figures as at day 101 of lockdown. Remember, we are in day 102. On day 101, the total number of confirmed cases in South Africa stood at 187,977. And the total number of deaths as at yesterday reached over 3,000. In fact, we are sitting now in South Africa with 3,026 deaths. That was yesterday's figures. But what we need to do now going forward is the figures that's being released by the Department of Health is no longer meaningful. In other words, we do not want to hear anymore what are the total number of infections in the country, or the number of infections per province, or the number of infections per region. I believe that we need to now break those figures down even further. So we need to know, for example, in Chatsworth, in Phoenix, in Tongaat, in Umlazi, in KwaMashu, in Pietermaritzburg, what are the rates of infection in those areas? In that way, it will give us some idea about where the infection rate is increasing at a very high, a high rate. So by knowing that, we will be able to put in measures to mitigate the further increase and spread of the virus in what we would call the hotspot areas. So, guys, we are currently, and what was shocking was that the total number of new infections as at day 101 stood at 10,853. 10,853 new infections. And if you remember, at the beginning of the lockdown, when we reached 100 cases of coronavirus, it was such a big thing. And today we have 10,853 new cases in a 24-hour period here in South Africa. And that means that as a country, we are sitting in the top 10 in terms of the number of infections in the world. And this is not one of those competitions that we want to be seen to be in the top 10. This is not one of those. Right, so that was the figures that came out and released on Sunday, where 10,853 new infections were going to be new infections were recorded. Right, the number of deaths that took place on Saturday, which was released on Sunday, was 74. Now let's look at today's figures. And today, as at Sunday, the 5th rather, the number of new cases yesterday was 8,773, and the total number of deaths increased from 3,026 to now 3,199. Now this is interesting. The number of recoveries. There are 93,315 people who have recovered, totally recovered from the COVID-19. And as it stands right now, 196,750 people in South Africa of the total number of tests conducted are positive. Let's look at the number of tests. The number of tests that have been conducted in South Africa so far stands at close to 2 million. In other words, 1,830,161 tests were conducted, and of those tests, 196,000 people have tested positive. So I want us today to pause for a minute, because I've been speaking to many people, both within my family, in the community, and across the board, and there's so much of fear and anxiety that's gripping our nation right now, simply because when this virus started to infect people, the leaders, the experts started to respond in a state of panic. And as a result of that, they put everyone in this anxiety mode. You recall the messages that were coming forward, and worse still, the fake news, so much of fake news that we've had to deal with, that today we are sitting here as a nation, and indeed I think throughout the world, where people are living in absolute fear, where their livelihoods have now come to a complete standstill. The economy in the world has now come to a standstill, and every single day we are learning something new about this virus. And that is why it is so important that we must keep in contact with the latest developments, not the ones that come in your WhatsApps and your social media fake news, but from reputable sites and from those who are genuinely qualified. South Africa has the highest number of coronavirus cases in the continent of Africa. But South Africa is also the country that has done the highest number of testing. So if you look at the world today, there's been more tests done in the world today than at the start of this pandemic. And what does it tell us? It tells us that because people are being tested, we are now seeing more and more people who are positive. What about those people? And if you look at South Africa, in terms of our population dynamics, we've got 57 million people here in South Africa. 2 million tests have been conducted, and just close to 200,000 people have tested positive of the 2 million tests. It means that there are many others, possibly millions of others, who have not been tested and who have the virus. And I want us to please take note of this, because this is what's causing a lot of fear. Just last week, I announced a man who got the news that he tested positive for coronavirus. He didn't die of the coronavirus, he died of a heart attack because he had a shock of his life. So that is what is going on currently in terms of fear mongering. Some people are feeding this fear and adding to the pandemonium and grip that people are finding themselves in today. So I want to look at the figures as they are, and I want to put it out there that there may well be people who have had the coronavirus in the past 3 months and have recovered from it and didn't even know they had this virus, because the symptoms of coronavirus is about the same as a common flu. And I've been told by a doctor friend of mine today that there are more people in the world that have died of things like the flu, tuberculosis, car accidents, for Pete's sake, than coronavirus. At the moment, the fatality rate of COVID-19 stands at below 2% around the world. That is, of course, if authorities in other countries are giving the correct information. I've just read something today where in one state in the USA, they've now found that people who died of other illnesses, you know, they had heart complications or lung complications, they were put down as having died of coronavirus. And that's why the figures are growing. They seem to be at such a large number. So we are now in South Africa. Our children are going back to schools. You've heard the Minister Angie Motshekga yesterday. She said that the number of infections, the number of deaths arising out of COVID-19 was a fraction. It was very small. I don't want to give my view on that, but what is important, and you need to be aware of this, is that the department has given parents the opportunity to decide whether you want your kids to go to school or not. And international research, and from experience, we found that children are able to recover from this virus very, very quickly. So with that, yesterday's Tribune speaks about, and I want to bring this home. I want us to look at some real stories, not stories that we see in the news, but stories that are happening around us in our own community. Yesterday's Tribune reports the death of activist and politician Bachu Jairaj, who was buried on Saturday. His son said that his father was nursing the flu and was on a course of antibiotics when he took a turn for the worse. While at hospital, he was diagnosed to have the coronavirus, and he succumbed to this virus last Friday. Bachu was a friend of mine. We served together in the eThekwini municipality, where he was a councillor. He also started a party called the Hindu Party or something like that. And he was an activist, and we want to today pay our respects from Off the Cuff to a activist, a politician, and someone who was a prolific letter writer in the media, Bachu Jairaj. In the same paper, Tashika Pillay, one of the reporters, she reports that a father and son died just days after each other, and they both contracted the virus. And this happened in Phoenix. Dr. Sunil Rupnarayan, who is a general practitioner in the Phoenix area, said that he had seen 12 positive COVID-19 patients in the past week. But Phoenix is not the only community to be hit by the virus. A number of residents from Overport, and I did report this, are in isolation after testing positive with coronavirus. Tongat councillor Dolly Munyin. Those of you who know Tongat councillor Dolly Munyin, she is also recovering from the virus after testing positive. She spent a week in the ICU, and she told the Herald that she never expected to get the virus, as she took all necessary precautions. And this is one of those councillors who was out in the field doing the hamper drives and addressing the issues confronting her community. So she is currently recovering. We wish her a speedy recovery. On Saturday, I was in Chatsworth, and I've heard news that there are some homes where families have been infected with the virus and they are in quarantine. And I saw one of the houses in Westcliff, which was closed, and the family are self-isolating. I believe that one of the family members had contracted the virus and is now recovering at the Chatsmed hospital. So I was the first, in fact, in one of my shows to caution that at the very early stages of the lockdown, that we must never ostracize or stigmatize this virus. And I see others have now taken up that message and they are sharing the message in the community. Obviously, people are doing that at the moment. And to you that are doing such a thing, you're extremely insensitive, because the coronavirus affects everyone, irrespective of your social standing. You've heard politicians, business people, ordinary folks, simple people, all getting this virus. So nobody is immune to it. And you can pick up the virus just by touching a surface at the restaurant, and you can get the virus. So it is insensitive in the extreme when people start to ostracize members who have the virus. And let me tell you what the danger is. The danger is that a person who feels they have the virus will not want to go and get tested, because they are afraid that if the result comes back positive, they will be ostracized in the community. So people, please stop doing stupid shit like that. I'm sorry, excuse my language. You should simply be understanding and be a little bit more sympathetic, because let me tell you this, the spike in this virus, we have not seen it as yet. It's only going to come in the next week or two. Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the Minister of Health, said that between 60 and 70% of South Africa's population will be infected with COVID-19. What does it mean? It means that you may have someone in your own family. It could be your dad, your mom, your child, could be a grandparent, could be a family member that will be infected. And you will start hearing about that soon. What are you going to do? Are you going to go and ostracize them? Are you going to take your child and trace them from the house and say you got the coronavirus? You shouldn't be in my house? No, you wouldn't do that. You would give them support. So in that way, we all need to become more humanitarian. We need to become more understanding, more sympathetic. We need to reach out to those people who have unfortunately contracted the virus. And the reality is that 80%, over 80% of them will recover in a space of 7 to 14 days. You've heard the announcer from, I think it's ETV E-News, Shahan Ramkisoon. He tested positive, and he put up a video. He came out there telling people that his symptoms were mild. He had the runs, he had a little bit of fever, and he was in self-isolation. And while he was in isolation, he recovered. He tested again. He's now negative, and he is back at work. So, like Shahan Ramkisoon, there are scores of others. There are 87 or so thousand people in this country who have recovered from this virus. It was like just having the flu. So I just feel that when this pandemic started, some governments or some people who had an interest, they blew this thing out of proportion to such an extent that now it is difficult to contain the fear that they've created in among citizens. And that is what we have to be dealing with today. I always say this, we're dealing with three things here. One, we're dealing with this virus called COVID-19. Two, we're dealing with stupidity, plain stupidity, because some people are just plain stupid. And thirdly, we're dealing with fear. People have fear, genuine fear. And I want to share with you some of those fears. I mean, I know of mothers and parents who are so afraid to send their kids to school. And, I'm not here to tell you that you should be sending your kids to school. But what I'm here to say is take the initiative, get in contact with the educators, get in contact with the school. And if you decide to keep your child at home, make sure they're not losing out on valuable tuition time. And teachers today will go the extra mile to ensure that they prepare worksheets, etc. for your children. The other, I will not advocate this because it's only those children who have access to internet and data services and computers and all the latest technology. They can do what is called online learning, and online learning is taking place currently. So we want to ensure that all our children at least do not miss out. My message to you also, from what I've been seeing and reading, is that the peak is coming soon. By August, September, we should be, this virus would have, we've seen the last, slowly start seeing the last of the virus around in the country and indeed around the world. All right, it was reported that teachers in Kwaduguza are having to fork out over 1,000 rands to get a COVID test done, even after they have been exposed at school. The cost of the test is 850 rand in Kwaduguza, 200 rand for a consultation with the doctor, and 300 rands just to get the result. For the doctor to phone you and give you the result, or for them to send you an SMS. This is outrageous. These teachers, these educators, they are really the guardians of our children when they are at school, and we must ensure that the state protects them. It is unbelievable that a teacher who has to contract the virus while at school, while on duty, has to pay for their own test. Can you believe that? Some of you will argue, but they've got medical aid. Irrespective. If it's medical aid, you are using that medical aid and you're exhausting that medical aid. So we call on the authorities, and I do know that some of the education authorities, including a spokesperson from the Department of Education who tunes into the program, if you are here today, please follow up on this. I know in Durban, when you go for a test, there's no such thing as you pay the doctor a separate amount. If you feel you are infected with the virus, or you've come into contact with someone who has the virus, or you are showing symptoms of this, you go straight to the lab, and there are many set up around in Durban and throughout the country. You go to the lab and you get yourself tested. And when you go there, your medical aid either pays for it or you pay for it yourself. While we're on that, the Solidarity Fund. The Solidarity Fund was set up by President Ramaphosa, and it went on a fundraising initiative. It raised 2.6 billion rands. We have been told in recent media reports that the money is now run out. And this was the money that was needed for things like test kits and PPEs, etc. Now, we want to know from off the cuff, and I think our listeners want to know, how was this money spent? Who was given the tenders to spend this 2.6 billion rands? I am glad that the Black Business Forum and other organizations are challenging this Solidarity Fund and the way it has been spending those monies. You see, it's like this. We live in a country where there's tremendous poverty. Now, if you have 2 billion rand, our leaders and those that are in charge must ensure that we are able to spread that butter evenly over the entire slice of bread. If we don't do that, then in a very short space of time, you'll find that that money will go into many people's pockets, and it will not be benefiting the very people that it was meant to benefit. The irony of the whole thing is those monies came from people who sponsored them. They were driven by compassion, and they sponsored monies towards this fund to be used for PPEs. Just yesterday I read that at the Albert Luthuli Hospital, the frontline workers there, including the nurses, were striking because they use one mask for 2 days, disposable masks. They see, a large number of patients, one nurse, and they don't have sufficient number of PPEs. Now, if we do not protect our frontline workers in this country, if we do not protect our policemen, our nurses, and our doctors, then when this virus starts to peak, these are the people that are responsible for protecting us and taking care of us when we get sick. And if they get sick, who's going to be able to take care of us? The fatality rate is going to go much, much higher. So we are calling on the government to subsidize the cost of testing for all state employees. Teachers must know their status because they come into contact with hundreds of our children daily. Okay? Right, let's move on to something else now, and that is the lockdown regulations. And why did we have lockdown regulations here in South Africa in the first place? The lockdown regulations was simply meant to stop people from moving unnecessarily. Because the thing about the coronavirus is that it does not move on its own. If you have the virus and you sit in your room and you don't meet anybody, the virus doesn't move anyway. You sit there for 14 days, you recover, and you'll be fine, you can come out of there. The problem is that when people move, the virus moves with them. They carry it with them. Worse still, we find a new form of this coronavirus now, where you see no symptoms. So a person could be looking perfectly fine, but would be infected with coronavirus, and they would be spreading the virus. Now, I want you to know that the government acted extremely responsibly, because on a matter like this, you could not leave it on, just leave it to people. You decide whether you want to stay at home or go on the streets. We know people. We know what they do. And that's one of the reasons why I am very critical about the unbanning of alcohol sales. I know what happens when people abuse alcohol. The rules go out the window. We all know that. And by unbanning alcohol, I think we have contributed to beds at hospitals that are being used to care for alcohol victims, alcohol abuse victims. And also, we are now increasing the potential spread of the virus, where alcoholics are just moving around drinking, and there's no social distancing. They do as they please. So that was the purpose of lockdown. The lockdown was imposed by governments throughout the world. They've imposed the lockdown to minimize the movement of people. And first we had a total shutdown, or what we call a hard lockdown, where none of us were allowed to move out of our houses. And during that time, you saw we have what is called flattening the curve. So the curve was flattened, as it were, and it means that we were able to prepare, the government was able to prepare hospitals and prepare for more beds to be made available, so that when we reach the peak season, which we are in currently, they would be able to care for those who start getting ill with this virus. So there was a gradual easing. The government was putting in measures to prevent the spread of the virus, but people had to go to work. in order to survive. Otherwise, people would have died from hunger and not the coronavirus. The government made one fatal error, and that was to open non-essential services and to some extent schools, the way it's currently being opened. Let me explain to you. What is the need to open up the casinos, to open up the cinemas, to open up the malls to the extent that they are opened up currently, hairdressing salons, etc.? Because these can hardly be described as essential. And the more of these industries that we open, the nice to have industries that we open, we find that the virus starts to spike. You know, a barber or a hairdresser sees hundreds of customers, over a period of time. So imagine their exposure. And if you have one of them who has the virus, they could so easily spread it onto you or anyone else. So my appeal is that while we opening up the economy, it is important that we must remain vigilant. We must take all the necessary precautions, wear the mask, especially when you're outside, maintain social distancing, wash your hands at least for 20 seconds. It's proven that these are things that prevent you from getting this virus. But you have a choice. You have a choice today. The choice is, do you go out and engage in risky behavior and don't follow the advice that's coming from the experts? Or do we just continue doing as we please? There will be repercussions for both. I have a news clip that I wanted to show you, and this is from the SABC, and you'll see how parties like the DA and the EFF and others, how they have been behaving when going to court and spending money in court, doing all of that. And we want to just have a look at what that has done. But before we do that, I want to show you a video, because South Africa has marked 100 days under the Covid-19 nationwide lockdown. I have a video that I want to show to you, and if you would just bear with me, I can just get this this thing going. I'm getting used to the system here. And Zachariah, I don't know where he is, so we are going to try to find this now quickly. I have the clip here. There it is. And it's South Africa marks 100 days after the lockdown. So let's watch this. It's a clip from
An unusual show of unity from various political parties aimed at putting the lives of South Africans first. Political parties rallied their support behind government and supported the nationwide lockdown.
The National Coronavirus Command Council has decided to enforce a nationwide lockdown for 21 days with effect from midnight on Thursday, the 26th of March. This is a decisive measure to save lives of South Africans from infection and save the lives of hundreds of thousands of our people.
As a greater sign of solidarity, many pledged money to the Solidarity Fund and participated in food distribution efforts. But as the number of COVID cases rose, the impact on the economy was devastating. On the 1st of May, based on scientific evidence, the country moved to lockdown level 4. This allowed for certain industries to open up, but the cracks started to show. Political parties like the DA were highly critical of government and subsequently called for an end to what they labelled as the ANC lockdown. The official opposition joined the FF Plus in taking government to court over the constitutionality of the lockdown.
after our pledge for direct access to the Concourt was not acceded to, we've announced that we are not going to drop the fight. We're going to take the fight against the Disaster Management Act all the way to the Constitutional Court, even if we've got to go the longer route now and wind through the high courts. Cases already lodged against the unconstitutionality of the Disaster Management Act that gives national government wide powers without the commensurate oversight and accountability that should be required, and empowers government to keep us in a state of national disaster.
The third biggest opposition also criticized government, but for completely different reasons. The party remains opposed to the easing of the lockdown. They have since withdrawn their participation from further consultations with the president.
When it started, it was a good thing. We were all at one. We had a first meeting. All the things we said in those meetings were implemented. But that was to the exclusion of white capital. And then the capital moved in and started disregarding the unity of political parties and the unity of cabinet and the unity of people of South Africa, who were very supportive of the initiatives.
But has the country been successful in trying to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus? And why are there now dissenting views amongst political parties?
The opposition parties, especially the DA, were supportive because they realized the severity of the coronavirus, Covid19. I think since then, they have positioned themselves to exploit the weaknesses in government's response and are trying to build up their credibility, their profile as an opposition party, because President Ramaphosa's reputation is soaring, and they feel that they can't be seen to be too close to him. They've got to see themselves as a separate voice with different options to give voters a different set of choices.
Of course, questions will need to be asked as to whether South Africa has been successful or not in the last 100 days. And I think the results are quite mixed ones, in the sense that in the first place, you find that there's been quite agreement at the beginning among political parties, but in the middle of a lockdown, political parties began to pull apart where there's not been that much of agreement. You find some opposition parties, the DA, for example, official opposition, taking government to court, questioning some of the lockdown rules and regulations. So it has been quite a very tough lockdown indeed so far, and the virus continues to spread.
As many sectors of the economy like restaurants, personal care services and hotels are now open, the country finds itself with rising infections. President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged South Africans to not panic because of the rising numbers of coronavirus infections in the country. But he's also placed the ball in our courts, imploring citizens to take precautionary measures. Please do remember to wash or sanitize your hands at all times, wear a mask and keep your distance. Natasha Piri, SABC News, Johannesburg.
That was a news clip from Morning Live, SABC News, on the 100 days of lockdown here in South Africa. Let me welcome our listeners that have joined us. And we have Jane. Jane, it's been a long time. Good to have you on the show, buddy. Thank you very much for joining in. Chantal Naidu, Soli Raja, Ravi Buddhu, Zainul Patel, Viloshni Gangadharan, and Zachariah Pillay. Welcome, Zach. Dr. Dina, I mentioned, is also Leanne Nair, Niri Mudli, all the way from Gauteng, Rosie Chetia, and Vuyo and Famida. Today, one of our regular listeners, Rosie Naidu, it's her birthday. So Off the Cuff wants to wish Rosie a happy birthday. I want to read, Kesavan has sent me a message. Kesavan, I hope you're doing well and that you're on your way to recovery. I've spoken to a few COVID-19 patients, and the remarkable thing that they've all said to me is that they've went to their doctors and the doctor said, go home and build your immune system. Go and take vitamin C and zinc and vitamin D and so on, and try to eat healthy, and don't smoke, don't take alcohol, and you'll be able to recover. Because there is no antibiotic, there is no vaccine, there is no medication for coronavirus. In fact, there is no medical journal that these doctors have went into medical school to learn about that speaks about coronavirus. So it's something so new. But what I find to be quite interesting is, and the medical profession has generally frowned upon the idea of natural remedies. But today, everyone is talking about natural remedies. I spoke to a good friend of mine, Fozia Peer, last night. And Fozia, her husband, is a well-known ENT specialist in Durban. Fozia tells me that she uses a concoction, which I've started trying that myself. She boils ginger, you slice the ginger up. She puts slices of lemon into a pot of water. And if you want to add some flavor to it, you can put in some rooibos tea bags, and you boil this. Boil it, put it in a flask, and have a glass of that every day. The ginger and the honey, the lemon helps in clearing your chest and building your immunity. But I've also heard this. This is age-old Indian remedies. You know, manja, haldi, turmeric, very powerful antibiotic. Has good properties in it. Has properties in it that builds your immune system. That's your turmeric, your manja and haldi. The other one is honey. Also add some honey inside there, and you would find that this concoction will generally ease your chest, make you feel much better. And if you look at my medicine cabinet, I have stocked up. I make sure I have enough vitamin C. I'm taking zinc. I'm taking vitamin D, also vitamin D which you get in the sunlight, because these are the ingredients that will strengthen our bodies and prevent us from getting sick with coronavirus if we contract it. So right now, if you're listening in on this program, and if you're not taking at least a vitamin C supplement, you need to go immediately tomorrow morning and stock up your cupboards with that. Because remember, we're also going through a very cold spell right now, and this is not the ideal climate to be able to curb a virus like corona, which affects your chest, your respiratory organs, and we all know that during this time we pick up all kinds of other illnesses. Now Solly says, I know that you are for the ANC cigarette ban. Solly, that is not true, my friend. I am not here, and this is not an ANC cigarette ban. I want us on Off the Cuff to be able to separate the fact from the fiction, to separate the real issues here, okay? And he says that his dad is 78 years old and has been smoking since the age of 15, and he himself is a smoker. Obviously, all smokers have tried to stop previously, but it's almost impossible. How do the ANC, I wouldn't say ANC because this is a government decision, how does the government expect people to suddenly just stop smoking? It's an addiction. I'm sorry to say, but even I have to purchase illegal cigarettes during lockdown. On top of that, all that's available is the cheap cigarettes, which are extremely bad for your health. I agree with you. I agree with you, Solly, because the cheap cigarettes, the fake cigarettes that's now flooding the market and that's being sold for 100, 200 rands a packet is definitely bad for your health. I agree with that. I also agree that that there are people who have been smoking for many, many years and it's had no impact on them. But I want you to agree that a large number of smokers suffer with various ailments as a direct consequence of smoking. And let me give you an example. If you go to take an insurance, if you take a life insurance, one of the questions they ask you is, do you smoke? Are you a smoker? And if you say yes, the policy gets loaded. Why? You see, when insurance companies, when they do this questionnaire, every questionnaire is well thought of. They use what you call them, my son is pursuing a career in this. Okay, these are professional people that sit and analyze each and every condition. So there is a direct correlation between smoking and your health. In my own personal life, my dad was a smoker. He used to smoke Lexington cigarettes, a packet a day. And what that did to him in the last years of his life, I've seen it. It damaged his lungs. He's had, numerous problems with it. I also agree, and I think we need to be aware of that smoking does affect your lungs, your respiratory organs, but we also accept that people have become addicted to smoking. And that is true, Solly. I agree with you. To suddenly just say, bring the ban, and to ban this cigarettes, how do you deal with people who have an addiction to cigarette smoking? You're obviously forcing them into the illegal trade. My view is that at the moment there are a number of contradictions, serious contradictions, which I think any sharp attorney, legal-minded person will be able to pick up, and there could be easy challenges in court. Let me explain. The casinos have been opened, and the casinos have smoking areas. I got a message from Suncoast saying, "Dear Mr. Reddy, we are missing you." Even my wife don't send me messages like that. And I keep looking at that message. I say, somebody is missing me. Maybe I should go and say hi to them. Imagine that. Dear Mr. Reddy, no, not Mr. Dear Visvin. Dear Visvin, we at Suncoast are missing you. And then they give you a story about this, that, and a smoking area is opened up in Suncoast. Now, I want to ask you a question. If smoking is banned in the country, and we are 90 days into lockdown, over 100 days into lockdown, where are people going to be getting cigarettes to go into a casino and smoke? Come on, tell me. If any of you have been in a casino and you've seen people smoking, do share those experiences with us. The fact of the matter is that the market is flooded with cigarettes at the moment. And I think events have overtaken the government. The government needs to get back, and they need to unban the cigarettes. Because one of the very important plus factors is that sale of cigarettes generates huge revenue for the government. I read an advert placed by some tobacco advocates yesterday in the Sunday papers, and they said that with the revenue lost as a result of the smoking ban, 3 hospitals could have been built. And they give you a whole lot of things, schools, number of schools, and so on. So there's quite a few billions that's been lost to revenue. So if the government is concerned about the economy and opening the economy and doing all of that, then I think everything's open now. They might as well just do it all. So I take your point, Solly, and thank you very much for raising that issue with us. All right, we have now gone, we've overstepped our stay here at Off the Cuff, and let me play out with a song, and this one it's a chutney song. You may have missed it on Sunday, so I'm going to bring it back, and this is going to take us to the end of Off the Cuff. Thank you for joining. Have a great night. God bless you all. and that's Mosi something. It's a Chakti song, and the day you saw Bash for Tash and you saw the cast of one of our local productions, they live. Now I just want to share with you something because it's just come through now. I've still to verify this, but I would not want you to lose out because I will be back on Wednesday this week. So Momentum and Dischem has announced that they will be offering private lab COVID testing to non-medical, aid and unemployed patients. They have received 20 million rands from the Solidarity Fund to do this. I'm not sure if this is an old article or a new one. To be part of this, patients need to access the service, and this is what you need to do. Star 120 star 394 hash on your phone. Star 120 star 394 hash on your cell phone. No data or airtime is required. Hello Doctor, which is a part of Momentum, will call the patients back within an hour, and if they meet the necessary criteria, they will be referred to Dischem for free private laboratory testing. So that's something you need to double check. And and if it's true, make use of that service that's being offered. Good night, and thank you for joining in.